A Green Beret is taking his battle to sue Army doctors all the way to Congress, even as he battles for his own life. Active duty service members cannot sue for medical malpractice or negligence because of a 1950 Supreme Court decision known as the Ferris Doctrine. The House passed a new provision in the annual National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, that could partly overturn that decision. Jan Crawford spoke with the sergeant leading this charge.
Well, I'm sorry about your situation.
Nearly a decade after his last overseas deployment, Army Sergeant Richard Stayskal is fighting a new battle.
It's definitely one of the bigger, more challenging ones I've ever been a part of.
Going back to Iraq.
In many ways, that seems almost easier.
A Green Beret and former Marine, Stayskal was wounded in Iraq in 2004.
How are you feeling?
Good days and bad days.
Now he's fighting cancer and a legal roadblock known as the Ferris Doctrine.
The courthouse doors are totally shut to our military.
That's correct. They don't have a legal right or have any legal recourse when it comes to malpractice.
Attorney Natalie Quam represents dozens of service members blocked from suing the military for malpractice or negligence.
The spirit of that law was that if you were in combat, the initial law was to protect those medics and such from being sued for malpractice.
In combat.
In combat. In war.
The ruling's broad application has given Stayskal almost no recourse after he says doctors at Fort Bragg's Womack Army Hospital ignored a tumor growing in his lung.
I knew deep down there was something was not right.
He says when he was allowed to see a civilian specialist in June of 2017, he found out Army doctors had noted the growth at 2 separate appointments, but did nothing.
My pulmonologist out in town, he was actually the one who asked why nobody told us 6 months ago.
Would that have made a difference, do you think?
He said he truly believed deep down that 6 months of early notice would have been a big difference.
Did they give you any prognosis then?
I think I took it as like a flu. I was like, oh, okay, we'll just get this thing fixed. It's no big deal. I think everybody else knew differently.
What's the prognosis now?
Right now, I'm stage 4. I'm terminally ill.
This is not just medical malpractice.
Army nurse Katie Blanchard's case also is blocked.
I did everything right. I went to the people that I could go to. I asked for help. I made my command aware, and they failed me.
Blanchard was working as a hospital supervisor at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas when an erratic employee, whom she had repeatedly discussed with supervisors, doused her with gasoline and lit her on fire.
I went through a phase where I almost wished I didn't live through it, just because of how difficult it was and how I couldn't be with my children how I wanted to be.
Blanchard's attacker was sent to prison, but she says her former supervisors have been promoted, and the system that allowed her attack and others hasn't changed.
The military that I knew and that I loved and that my family loved had left me behind. I knew that if I lived, I wanted to change the system.
I want to welcome everyone.
In April, she was in the audience as Stayskal testified before the House Armed Services Subcommittee chaired by California Democrat Jackie Speer.
I have what's called an outrage meter, and when it goes off in a way that gives me heartburn, I know I have to do something.
Those efforts helped get a narrow exception to the Ferris Doctrine passed in the House. Now that it's up to the Senate, Stayskal is using the time he has left to keep fighting for change.
I'm unable to continue serving downrange and overseas in that capacity, but I'm not done serving my country.
It's a fight bigger than you.
Absolutely.
What if it doesn't go through?
That's a tough one. I don't want to believe that it's not going to go. I feel like it's going to happen. I have to. I want to.
Now, when Congress gets back to work here in September, Stayskal says he hopes the language that carries his name will make it into that final legislation. But even if it does, it'll only apply to cases of medical malpractice. Cases involving negligence, like Blanchard's, still will be blocked from going to trial. For CBS This Morning, I'm Jan Crawford.